Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and Diablo 4 Season 8 is being met with a lot of negativity. Between the changes to the Battle Pass and the Season 8 content, there's a lot to criticize. But despite all that, I'm actually having a lot of fun this season. I'll explain exactly why that is, but we'll also get deep into addressing the criticisms. After that, we'll check in with how Last Epoch is doing. There's a new loot update in Path of Exile 2. No Rest for the Wicked just dropped its big Breach update, and we'll cover a few other topics in gaming this week. Be sure to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new episodes. But before I move on, a quick word from this video's sponsor, Incogni. You ever wonder how you get spam calls, texts, and emails? It's because thousands of companies are collecting, aggregating, and trading your personal data. Now, you have the right to demand that a data broker deletes whatever personal info they may have about you. But tracking down and contacting all these companies? Who has that kind of time? That's where Incogni comes in. It's a service that reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requests your data be removed, and deals with any pushback they may give. And you'd be surprised at how much of your personal info may be out there. Not just your full name, email, and phone number, but also things like your employment history, your home address, your relatives, maybe even your social security number. So here's my dashboard. You can see that I've got 7 requests left in progress and 130 have been completed. I signed up with Incogni a couple years ago now, when I had started getting spam texts all the time. I don't know if it was because I signed up to some store's loyalty card, or because of one of the LinkedIn data breaches. Maybe it was from online shopping at the wrong website. All I know is that after using Incogni, I barely get spam messages anymore. Incogni has also added a family plan that lets you extend your coverage to up to 4 additional members, as well as an unlimited plan, which introduces Incogni's custom removals feature. With that, you can point to any website where your personal info is visible, and one of Incogni's privacy agents will take care of the rest. So, take back your data, stop the spam, go to incogni.com/Rhykker and use code Rhykker to get an exclusive offer of 60% off. That's incogni.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker, or click the link below to take your personal data off the market. So, starting with Diablo news. Season 8 is here, and it's safe to say the community reaction has been not great. Somewhere between mildly annoyed and flaming dumpster on the forums. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The Battle Pass changes. Gone is the standard linear track with steady platinum returns. Instead, we now have reliquaries, 4 separate reward trees. One is free, the other 3 cost platinum. And if you want them all, that'll run you the same 1000 platinum as before. But instead of getting 700 platinum back to help fund your next pass, or just, buy extra cosmetics, you now just get 200 platinum. Although that 200 is on the free track, whereas the 700 was only for paying players. IGN spoke to design director Colin Feiner, who said it's still a, quote, net win for everybody, since now even free players can earn some platinum. And players do have more choice in what rewards to go for now, which was the explicit intent of changing to this system. But it seems a lot of the customers who actually bought the battle passes in the past prefer the old system. You got more for your money, and this new battle pass also seems to do away with the free armor set that everyone could earn in past seasons. A lot of those kind of fun sets like the pirate set or the peasant set. Also in past seasons, the basic paid battle pass included all the coolest stuff, whereas with this new system, you need to buy the most expensive battle pass in order to unlock everything. So there aren't really that many upsides here for the customer. Some players are calling for Blizzard to revert back to the old Battle Pass system. For myself personally, what I really like in a Battle Pass is when truly dedicated players can earn enough currency to buy the next season's Battle Pass. Some players have more money than time, some players have more time than money. If someone is going to grind the game for 3 months, they deserve to get the next Battle Pass for free. These are your most dedicated players. They're already either going to be spending money in your game, or they don't have the money to be spending on the game at that point, so you're not losing any money by giving them the Battle Pass. Oh, one positive, you can now earn the Battle Pass stuff in Eternal. No need to make a seasonal character. Anyway, moving away from the Battle Pass stuff, Season 8's new content, the Apparition Incursions, hasn't exactly thrilled the majority of the player base. As far as seasonal activities go, this one just feels kind of like a new kind of Legion event. Feels smaller in scope than past season events, with little variety to it. Now, thankfully, for those who don't really care for the incursions, you don't actually have to do all that many of them. And the game does work best when you don't just chain farm them. Just do enough to unlock the blue boss powers you need. Then, if it comes up as a bounty or as a whisper rather, do it then. Otherwise, focus on doing lair bosses to farm your reputation because they're actually an excellent source of reputation. I think part of the reason the incursion events don't feel great is their timer-based nature. If an incursion was something that would just randomly pop up while you were doing a pit or a dungeon or something, kind of like a butcher, right? I think it may feel like a pleasant surprise in that case, but seeing it on a timer makes it feel like something to be done on a schedule. In general, I think Diablo 4 is just relying way too heavily on timers. Helltide timers, World Boss timers, Legion event timers, Pit Run timers, Undercity timers. It's like D4 is sponsored by Rolex or something. What's the harm in letting us play the game at our own pace on our own schedule? Now, the new Belial Uber boss is a very cool fight with interesting mechanics, and perhaps most importantly, no annoying invulnerability phase. The new Mephisto Wolf fight is cool with interactive mechanics. Updates to the other lair bosses are generally good, except perhaps for the addition of more invulnerability phases in general. That goes for Uber Lilith as well. They updated her fight, and now you can no longer DPS your way through to bypassing one of her phases. To clarify, I'm cool with bosses having multiple phases. I think the general design of what happens during those phases is great. I think it's not cool when those phases get triggered once you deal X amount of damage and then ignore any spillover damage. If I am theoretically strong enough to one-shot the boss, then let me one-shot the boss. Maybe trigger a rapidly draining barrier instead of a true invulnerability phase. If we're strong enough to break that barrier, we can keep damaging the boss. It at least lets us feel like we have some agency here. Now, if the boss runs off screen or burrows underground, then sure, that's fine. It makes sense that we can't be damaging them during this part of the fight. But in general, I don't think it's a great idea to make players feel like, hey, there's no point in increasing your damage output. Now, all that said, some positives here. I really do like the changes to lair bosses, the entire system and gameplay flow. I think the changes to the keys is great. How all of that gameplay loop operates is vastly improved. I really like the state that that's in now. We're doing fewer bosses for more rewards. I find myself engaging in it. I used to hate doing bosses. It was like the most boring, tedious thing to just chain a boss over and over and over. Now it's part of an entire gameplay loop, and fingers crossed, right? I guess we'll see in a couple more weeks. But so far, I am enjoying engaging in this gameplay loop. The bosses are also a lot more challenging now than they used to be. It feels like a lair boss exists in the Torment level above where it is, so if you can handle Torment 2, then you can handle a Torment 1 lair boss, but a Torment 2 lair boss will be really challenging for you. Then the boss powers, these are the best powers we've gotten in a season yet. Sure, the entire idea of powers has gotten stale, but as far as powers go, getting to burrow like Duriel, or shoot the Wandering Death Beam, or bring down Grigor's Lightning, all that is really cool, really fun. And the idea of going out to hunt for a boss to get its power, a deterministic means of unlocking the powers, that's been a really cool way to unlock the powers. Speaking of unlocking those powers, it's Season of the Bosses. Can we maybe increase the world boss spawn rates, at least for this season? How is a player with just a few hours of game time per week expected to unlock all the world boss powers? He has to hope that a world boss spawns in his play window. They're once every 3 hours, so there was a time when I thought a 3-hour gaming session was a long gaming session. And then he's got to hope that it's not a repeat of a boss that he already had previously. Now, while the season activity itself is pretty meh, I am enjoying overall playing Diablo 4 again right now. And that's mostly due to how they have tuned progression and difficulty and rewards. I thought all that was in a great place in Season 6, then Season 7 brought the game into a place that was just not fun for me. Now in Season 8, I've progressed to Torment 4, and I just really like the pace of everything. How long it took to hit 60, the move from Torment 1 to Torment 2, Torment 2 to Torment 3, Torment 3 to Torment 4. I felt the incremental steps in power. It wasn't just straight T1 to T4. I wasn't getting buried in item drops, needing to port back to town every 5 minutes to melt items down at the blacksmith. But I also don't feel like I'm starved for drops either. I just feel like everything has hit the Goldilocks zone. Maybe runes are a little on the too scarce, but then I did a bunch of Undercity tributes, hunting specifically for runes. I think that helped a lot. The Opal Gambler has been juiced to insane levels. Maybe it's too strong now, I don't know, but at least I feel like gambling is worth my time now and is a viable means of actually getting upgrades. Unlocking temper recipes, getting glyphs to drop, everything just gelled really well for me. And I'm at a phase where there's still a lot of improvement on my gear. I have mostly ancestral items, but none of them have the right greater affixes. I still have a lot of master working to do. I don't have a single mythic yet. I overall feel like there is still more game for me to play. But that's me and my taste. Do I think this is the best season yet? Well, not season specifically, no. Do I think the state of the game in Season 8 is the best it's been? Yeah, I do. This is the most fun the game has been for me. Not specifically the content, but the meat and bones of how the game works. Now I just love to start seeing big, exciting season themes, as well as some kind of unifying endgame system that builds towards some kind of greater progression. I'll likely make a full video explaining what I mean by this. Now, Season 8 also introduces a number of great quality of life changes, like teleporting straight to party members or teleporting straight to lair boss dungeons. The tempering interface remembers your last recipe. Another positive change, they moved the pet reward from the final chapter in the season journey to the second to last chapter, meaning you don't have to do anything in Torment 4 to get the best reward in the season journey. No more contradiction between T4 meant to be only for 10% of players while putting the reward everyone wants in Torment 4. Blizzard also released a hotfix at the end of the week where they increased the reputation reward significantly for world bosses and all the bosses in general, including the Blood Maiden, while they also reduced the health of Apparition Incursion bosses. So the reputation grind is getting easier and the incursions will be over faster. Now, interestingly, it seems this season will be quite short, just over 2 months, if the battle pass is to be trusted. We know Season 7 was extended, so maybe they just never moved the original end date of Season 8, and if that's the case, it seems they're on a pretty rigid schedule leading up to the release of the next expansion in 2026. You should have checked out my video on my predictions for that expansion. Now, is it possible this season was just intended to be a shorter season because it's a smaller season theme? Could Season 9 be bigger? And speaking of Season 9, I think this is the earliest we can expect to see learnings from Season 7 implemented into the game, given the staggered dev approach where they work on 2 seasons at once. So maybe in Season 9 we'll see Helltides improved with a Raven of the Tree and maybe witch hunts, as long as we don't get reintroduced to the loot issues of Season 7. Now, in that same interview with IGN, Colin was also asked about new skills and skill variety, and Colin teased at what kind of skill tree rework we may see come in the future. He said, quote, "As far as the skill tree changes, I can confirm we are talking about updates to the skill tree, but I don't have any details. It's something the team is taking very seriously. And we are talking about what is a major change that we think would create more build variety and more build diversity going forward. The reason why it's going to take us quite a while is this kind of a big problem to entangle. So right now, just to dive into some of the details, legendary aspects are 2 parts that we consider problematic. It's both customization, which is like, I want my, for example, if you played Rogue, twisting blades to orbit around me. We think that's a really cool thing and a really cool playstyle customization choice. But because it's a legendary item, it also has what we call power growth, which is now Twisting Blades deals more damage. And what that means is that if you want to play a Twisting Blades rogue, you have to play with a Twisting Blades orbiting around you playstyle, right? We've just sort of said, because there's both power on this as well as customization, this is the only way you're allowed to play Twisting Blades rogue. So we want to separate some of that out. We want to pull more of the customization into the skill tree and allow aspects to be more power growth. That's a lot to entangle, and that's why it's a lot of conversations that we're having right now. And it's a lot of work on us to make sure we get it right, so that we release it into a high quality state. that's just like a little insight into the philosophy that we're working towards as part of that. It sounds like they want to add more meaningful skill customization into the skill tree, which sounds great to me. What kind of changes would you folks like to see to the skill tree? And what do you folks think of Season 8? Sound off in the comments. If you still want to try the season and you're trying to pick a class, I got a class tier list video, and I also have my ultimate guide to Season 8 that should answer all your questions so that you're smooth sailing into the new season. And for anyone looking for a Diablo fix that is not D4, Project Diablo 2 is starting its new season on May 16th. This is a popular mod that requires original version of D2 and its expansion to run, not D2 Resurrected. And the mod itself is free to grab from projectdiablo2.com. In some Last Epoch news, sentiment on Season 2 remains overall strong, though some endgame critique is starting to come in, as expected. Some players feel there's not enough content variety in the endgame, or not enough to do. Season 2 has definitely helped with this tremendously by adding an entire new faction tree to upgrade and multiple new kinds of content to interact with and customize in the endgame. I think if the devs just keep up with this kind of stuff, we'll be golden. The pacing of the endgame is generally praised. Players appreciate the target farming, the clear gear and blessings progression, and how upgrades feel consistently within reach. Everyone who plays the Circle of Fortune seems to love it, feeling like you can craft and get the right loot without relying on trade. Now for me, the main weakness of Last Epoch relative to the competition is that it does not hold up in terms of combat feel. The moment-to-moment combat in PoE 2 and D4 feels much better. I think Last Epoch has the best systems, but that gameplay feel, it just doesn't compare to the AAAs. But that's not enough to discount the game. Now, EHG boss Judd Kobler even addressed this on Reddit, saying that the reason for that feel not being quite as good as it can be, quote, it's a combination of sound, the sound mix, lack of hit flinch in some instances, and screen shake not reliably being present where it should be. And in some cases, just animations not being as good as they can be. We're working on all these, and sound updates are definitely a high priority. We've brought on a couple additional sound designers in the last 6 months, and have been having more meetings about the sound design and mix way more frequently. Now, balance-wise, there's some frustration around the Paladin's dominance and power scaling. When half the player base is playing one class, something is off, and yeah, that's an official stat from the devs themselves. 49% of players are playing Paladin. Discussions on the game's difficulty, or lack thereof, continue, and this actually may be an instance where we need an EHG solution. By which I mean, some people want the game to be harder, and some don't. EHG is brilliant at coming up with solutions to make everyone happy, so let them cook. Let them cook up a game system that accomplishes just that. I won't even suggest anything because they're the ones who come up with the genius ideas, like how they made both trade and non-trade players happy. There has to be a better way than just selecting between two difficulty settings. Ultimately, Last Epoch may not be perfect, but it's doing so much right. And as the devs continue to cook, I can only imagine how much better the game will get. But what are your thoughts? Have you stopped playing Season 2 of Last Epoch? Why or why not? Now, over in the world of No Rest for the Wicked, the giant Breach update just dropped this week. I haven't had a chance to check it out myself yet because of the D4 season, but I'm really looking forward to diving back into Wicked. Breach added not only a ton more content, but also some welcome quality of life improvements, like you can now access items in your home or community chests directly from the vendors. Now, we did see a big surge of complaints about the game's difficulty. Some of that was probably just new players, because yes, the game is hard and ARPG players are not accustomed to hard. But even some veterans actually felt the game had become way harsher than it used to be, and that the game seemed to be pushing parrying as the only viable defensive option. The devs have acknowledged some things are overtuned or undertuned, and they released a hotfix to address some balance issues, and they're taking a look at a lot more. To their credit, they are clearly listening and very vigilant. But on the positive side of things, many players are still blown away by how good the game feels. People are raving about the art direction, the freedom of movement and exploration, and the overall polish. It's one of those rare titles where the foundation feels special. Even if it's a bit wobbly right now, the dev team has been active, communicative, and responsive. They are clearly super duper passionate. The game isn't trying to appeal to everyone. It's hard, unapologetically so. It's methodical, and yeah, punishing in places. I would highly encourage people who enjoy Path of Exile 2 to check out No Rest for the Wicked. If you like the difficult, methodical, Dark Souls-esque combat, No Rest for the Wicked is the ARPG that is most like Dark Souls. And speaking of Path of Exile and Path of Exile news, we've had a big patch with bringing great news and a bittersweet farewell, which is sad news. Let's start with a departure that's got longtime fans feeling a little emotional. Rory Rackham, former lead game designer at Grinding Gear Games, has officially left the company after 14 years. He announced that he's starting his own studio, though, going full-time on a new project called Into the Root Forge, which you can already wishlist on Steam. Rory's been a major figure in PoE's development, and with the recent departures of game designer Hrishi Siddhartha and founder Chris Wilson himself, some fans are growing concerned. Add in the departure of beloved community manager Bex back in 2023 and creative director Eric Olofsson in 2022, and some fans are saying it'll be full-on red alert if Jonathan or Mark leave at this point. What's important to remember, though, is that these are people who have spent roughly a decade, if not more, of their lives at Grinding Gear Games. How many of you can say you've stayed with the same company for over 10 years? Especially in today's age, it's increasingly uncommon. It's okay for people to move on and work on other projects. It doesn't mean the ship is sinking. All we can hope for is that these people have left their mark on the company's culture so that their efforts continue to carry through. But on to happier news. Path of Exile 2 just got one of its most important patches yet, a loot buff. And the preliminary response seems to be that people are loving it. The update reworked item drops across the board after heaps of feedback about how unrewarding loot had been feeling. According to GGG's official patch notes, the changes include unique bosses no longer dropping normal quality items, unless it's very early game. Rare monsters now drop more rare items, and rare chests guarantee at least one rare. Tier 2 rares drop 4 times as often, and Tier 3 to 5 rares got a 30% drop rate boost. Rare currency like Exalts and Regals now drop 20 to 30% more often. Magic items in Tier 2 and up drop about 5 times more often. Strong boxes and Asmirian Wisp monsters are way more rewarding. And researcher strong boxes now have a higher chance of rare currency instead of magic junk. On top of all that, they've also cleaned up the mod pool for tiered rares, making them feel a lot better out of the box. This should lead to more usable gear and better crafting opportunities, especially for solo self-found players. Now, there's one kind of controversial tweak in all this. The effect of player item rarity stats on gear has been reduced. GGG said this was to prevent unintended power spikes in loot due to the increased drop quality. Now, some players are fine with that. Others are begging GGG to just kill off player rarity entirely and remove the stat from gear once and for all. The debate continues. Still, community sentiment overall is way up. Players are reporting that loot finally feels consistent, rewarding, and fair without being over the top. There's more low-level currency for tinkering, more gear worth equipping, and just enough challenge to make it all feel satisfying. Now, again, this is what I'm hearing. I haven't had a chance to check it out myself yet. I look forward to, but please sound off in the comments with your thoughts if you've tried the latest patch. Next up, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered has already reached 4 million players. And it's not just nostalgia carrying this one. The remaster brings some serious improvements, and Bethesda's gone the extra mile doing stuff like adding new voice acting, including some clever continuity touches like finding the same actors who voiced characters in Skyrim. Now, Bethesda has also opened up a feedback channel for fans to suggest future improvements. Based on discussions in Reddit and Discord, one of the most requested fixes is, unsurprisingly, performance. Because while this remaster might look great, it's kind of running like someone cast Burden on your PC. Now, despite the performance issues, people are still absolutely loving the game. Although some players have kind of hit pause on their playthrough and waiting for performance issues to be ironed out. But where do you stand on the Oblivion Remaster? Are you one of the 4 million diving back in? Are you waiting for Bethesda to cast optimized performance before giving it a go? Have you moved on to Clair Obscure? Sound off in the comments. Now, in some Blizzard news, there's something very interesting brewing in Korea. Blizzard has allegedly just inked a deal with Nexon, the mega publisher behind MapleStory, Dungeon Fighter, and The Finals, to co-develop new games using the StarCraft IP. This is as per Korean newspaper MTN. This came after what's being described as a fierce bidding war between several major Korean studios, including NCSoft, Netmarble, and Krafton. Nexon came out on top, becoming Blizzard's preferred bidder for both StarCraft and a new Overwatch mobile title, which some bidders were calling Overwatch 3, but it is allegedly going to be a MOBA spin-off. I find that hard to believe. The MOBA genre has seen its heyday, and Blizzard already tried the whole MOBA thing with Heroes of the Storm. I loved Heroes of the Storm, but it never reached the success that it deserved. But back to StarCraft, we don't know exactly what Nexon pitched to win Blizzard over, but multiple concepts were on the table. Interestingly, there's no genre lock on what Nexon can create. That means we could be looking at something completely fresh, possibly not even an RTS at all. There's even talk that Nexon might push for a StarCraft game that's more in line with modern trends. So who knows what we'll get. But what would you folks want out of a new StarCraft title? Are you craving a modern RTS that brings back the glory days, or are you open to seeing StarCraft go in a bold new direction? I'd love to see a StarCraft 3, but if it's going to be Nexon at the helm, I think I'd rather see a spin-off that is more in line with their strengths. And now let's talk about a surprise hit that's got some people saying Game of the Year. Clair Obscure Expedition 33 has sold over 1 million copies in its first 72 hours. And that number doesn't even count the Game Pass players. This is the debut title from Sandfall Interactive, a brand new IP launching at just $45, and yet it is delivering the kind of experience that has folks comparing it to old school Final Fantasy, with a French twist. Players have been raving about the game's combat system. It blends classic turn-based strategy with timing-based parries, flash animations, and stylish menu presentations that honestly makes just picking your next move feel cool. And then there's the soundtrack. People are calling it one of the best soundtracks of the year. The entire game feels incredibly polished, performance is solid, bugs are minimal, and the story hits hard right out of the gate. The characters are written with maturity, the voice acting is stellar, and the whole thing oozes passion. Now, you've probably seen people online saying this was made by just 30 people, and that's partially true. Sandfall's internal team is about 30 people, and that alone is impressive. But it's also worth noting, for those who aren't familiar with how games are made, that key parts of the game, like in this case the combat animation, that was handled by an external 8-person Korean team. Then you got another small army behind the curtain, dozens of QA testers, localization staff, voice talent. Let's not forget, a full music crew, full-on 30-person orchestra. None of these people are part of the dev teams. They're not counted into that figure of 30 people made the game. Not to take anything away from them, but just to clarify, for some people who they think 30 people made it, and that, includes everyone doing the sound and the voices and whatever. None of that takes anything away from the achievement that is Expedition 33. The game is dominating physical sales charts in Japan. Copies are sold out, back-ordered online. It's not just successful, it is becoming a phenomenon. I myself can't wait to have time to jump in and try it. The number of games I need to play right now is piling up very quickly. Clair Obscure 33 has been on my radar since I saw the first trailer. But what do you folks think? Is Clair Obscure a real Game of the Year contender? Then in some EA news that feels like deja vu, with a side of, oh no, not again. Respawn Entertainment, the studio behind Apex Legends and the Star Wars Jedi games, just got hit with a wave of layoffs and cancellations. Around 100 devs were let go, as per IGN, including folks from the Apex and Jedi teams. That's on top of EA's wider cuts this week, where another 200 jobs were axed, mainly from their experiences team, which handles player support and marketing. But got the chop this time? Well, 2 early stage projects, one of them, codenamed R7, according to Bloomberg, was an extraction shooter set in the Titanfall universe. So, not Titanfall 3, because heaven forbid we actually get that one. No, this was yet another attempt at jumping on the extraction shooter bandwagon. Maybe following Marathon's underwhelming reveal, maybe EA read the room and bailed early. To be fair, R7 was nowhere near ready for release. And from what we know, it probably would have felt more like Extraction Apex than anything remotely Titanfall. Still, for Titanfall fans, this marks yet another entry in the long and painful saga of cancelled Titanfall-adjacent projects. Then lastly, in some Grand Theft Auto news, GTA 6 has been officially delayed to May 26th, 2026, as per Rockstar Games themselves, so PC version, what, minimum 2027 is my guess? And that's gonna wrap up this week's video, folks, but do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed whether or not Last Epoch is too easy. Thanks for watching, special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more gaming content.